important for us to know where our food comes from. It's important for us to know how to grow our own food.
We grow this food and we get to take it and make sure it's in the hands of people who need it. That's a magical, rewarding feeling that we're blessed to experience.
We should be able to heal our children. We shouldn't have to always go to the pharmacy and get all these drugs that are poisoning the kids, that's poisoning us. We gotta take our power back and get reconnected to Mother Nature.
What better way can you take care of yourself as you serve yourself by working to improve yourself?
It's really important to me that people adapt healthier habits in their day-to-day lives so that they can live longer, more fulfilling lives.
Playing a role in the diet of your community is a beautiful lesson and a beautiful responsibility.
And one of the benefits of the pandemic was a lot of people started to grow. So I'm seeing a lot more Black growers just throughout the city, and people who are really interested in learning how to grow. Like, how do I grow in a small space? How do I grow in my backyard? Can I grow in my backyard? I want to work with the seniors in our community. I want to work with the kids in our community. I want to learn how to do this. How do I do that?
You have to see the development of a seed to appreciate what it means to grow something, and then you have to taste it to see how different it is from what you're offered at the grocery stores.
In a city like this where there is a fruit and vegetable drought, it is important for people to have access to nutritional options so they can get their nutrition.
I don't think there's anything more spiritual than connecting to the earth, doing that rejuvenating work that, you know, rejuvenates your soul as well.
Peace world, my name is Dyshon Harris, better known as Farmer D. I am the founder and owner of Root Life LLC, and I am an urban farmer in New Haven, Connecticut. I was born and raised in New Haven. I was actually born in Yale Hospital, and I was raised the first year of my life on Arthur Street in the Hill, next to Miss Jamila's garden on Arthur Street. Around 1 year old, I moved to the West Hills neighborhood in New Haven, also known as 2-5, and I've been living there for the last 36 years of my life. I currently steward 5 different community garden spaces throughout New Haven in 5 different neighborhoods. The first is 333 Valley Street Community Garden in the West Hills neighborhood. The second is Star Street Community Garden in the New Hopeville neighborhood. There's the Armory Community Garden, which I co-steward with Nadine Horton on County Street in the Welly Edgewood Beaver Hills neighborhood. There's the Ferry Street Community Farm in Fairhaven, and there's the North Hill Community Farm on Ward Street, right behind Career High School.
Our Mother's Garden was established back in July, which is pretty late, but we made it happen. Everyone comes out and takes care of the garden, harvests from the garden. It's just a way that we uplift the community and get together. I wanted to build a garden in the community where I grew up to bring everyone closer together so we could talk about healthy dietary options, cooking. What inspired me to build this community garden was the fact that there's a lot going on with food insecurity, and I wanted to help provide the people of my community with healthy produce. And I wanted to do that in a way that would bring everyone closer together and really restore community here. I think it's done a lot in so little time already. We come out on Saturdays in the afternoon, the kids, the adults, teenagers, and we work in the garden, and we just started harvesting. We grow collard greens, we got some kale, we grow okra, peppers, cabbage. Did I say peppers? We grow peppers, tomatoes, string beans, cucumbers, carrots, some basil.
My name is Nadine Horton. I am the founder and garden coordinator for the Armory Community Garden in New Haven, Connecticut. I have been a resident of Beaver Hills for the past 21 years, and I grew up in West Rock. We had a community garden in the neighborhood probably now over 30 plus years ago. About 8 or 9 years ago, the residents wanted to bring it back. We found a space near our original community garden. The owner said we could have the space, we could grow whatever we wanted on it, but we would be responsible for the liability insurance. And since we are a volunteer organization, just of residents in the neighborhood, we did not have the $3,000 per year that it would cost to get the insurance. So we couldn't do that. Our current mayor, Justin Elliker, was the executive director of the New Haven Land Trust. I reached out to him, told him that we were interested in getting a community garden back in the neighborhood. We toured a lot of spaces in the neighborhood. We toured Hill House, we toured Gulf Street Park, and this was the last space we toured. And when he showed me this space, I was like, that's it. I knew this was it. It's right next to the historic Gulf Street Armory, behind the Whaley Avenue Jail, and both places are forgotten places. So when people are incarcerated, basically they're put into jail and forgotten about. The Armory was taken over by the city about 15 years ago and basically has been sitting dormant, but for a few art space events over the past maybe decade ago now. But there hasn't been much redevelopment or anything in that space. So basically, we're sitting between two dormant spaces, and the land itself here was sitting dormant. It was completely overgrown. Nothing much grew here. It had a lot of debris from the armory that fell from the roof. So basically we were coming in and literally bringing this space back to life. And I knew that this was the space that we needed to be in. Armory Garden is 8 years old. We started in April of 2016. We have a core group of gardeners, about 8 to 10 of our core group of gardeners who are basically the ones that started with us when we started the garden 8 years ago. And then we have lots of folks who come in and out every season. I would say with those 8 to 10 core gardeners, we can do anything at this point in this garden. But I think the thing that I love the most is that we have so many people who come in and out of the garden every season. That seems to grow each year. We currently have probably over, I don't even know, 40 beds, somewhere in there. We are rapidly outgrowing the space, so which is a beautiful problem to have, but we're gonna basically reconfigure the space for the 2025 growing season, but we basically started with the essentials and everything that an urban garden would grow. We did collards, eggplants, tomatoes, carrots.
My name is Shanti, and we are in the Little Red Hen Community Garden in New Haven. I am from the West River neighborhood in New Haven. I started growing in this garden when I was 16, and that was 12 years ago. I was raised in West River, so right up the street on LT Grasso and Chapel. That's where I was raised. I was a teenager living across the street. This plot used to have a house on it. The house was demolished, and instead of clearing it out and making it a parking lot, the community leaders, including my mentor and godfather, Stacy Spell, decided to turn this plot into a community garden. And I was enticed, I was interested, I came out, I volunteered, and I haven't left since.
Hi, my name is Jamila Rashid. I'm resident of New Haven. We're on Arthur Street at the Field of Green Community Garden. The community garden started, I'd say, 8 years ago, where this was an empty lot. It was really a trash dump. And I had went to a citywide program where they talked about improving things in New Haven. They talked about agriculture, they talked about food, they talked about just increasing the wellness of life in New Haven. And I met a gentleman, and he was talking about all the work he was doing in the community. And then we took like a bus tour after the conference and went to a lot of different community gardens in New Haven. And I was like, we need something like that in our neighborhood, simply because we need to improve the quality of life in our community. We need people to feel that they're worthy of what we have to offer or what they have to offer as residents of the community. I got the city to talk to them. The land trust, which is now gathered, decided, okay, we'll take over the lot. Really, we only started on this side. This side was still blank. And I got grant money online and just started working, getting different groups helping us. Community Foundation helped us with some money. Common Ground came out with their labor, helped us build beds. And it was like really a community effort, which made everything sort of like come together. It's been a labor of love. People have come and gone. Never down and we'll get some new people who are interested, people who really want to eat better. Just trying to increase the interest in growing your own food. I do a lot of collard greens because I love collards. We do mostly placental kale, curly kale. We have herb, parsley, basil, oregano, thyme. Of course, there's always tomatoes, and cucumbers did really good this year. We have a good crop of cucumbers and a good crop of zucchini. I was surprised with how much zucchini we got out of the garden this year.
Gather New Haven is great for finding a spot to grow your own food and to testing it out if you don't have your own yard and things like that. They provide access. They have over 50 different community garden spaces where you can go and you can start growing. They already have the infrastructure put up. It's a good way to get started if you're interested in that.
What was New Haven Land Trust, the only criteria they had for getting a community garden together was you just need to find a few interested residents who are willing to come to the space and grow food for community. That was basically it. That was basically the criteria. They take care of the lease from the city because they lease this space from the city of New Haven. They take care of their insurance. So basically all we had to do, or all I had to do, is find some other people who were interested in growing, come here and just grow. And that's a big relief for someone who didn't know anything really about community gardening. I know about community and, you know, doing advocacy and all kinds of things like that, but I had no idea really how to bring folks together around the community garden.
Actually, it's not expensive for people to get involved with. Rather, it provides soil, they provide, you know, wood, you can build, and they'll provide the seedlings and seeds for you to start.
My name is Jonathan Savage. I'm the Executive Director of Gather New Haven. I grew up in the New Hallville area of New Haven. I was farm manager for 3 years at Gather, partly at the site that I'm sitting in, also at a couple other sites that we also grew in as farms around the city. Gather New Haven is an organization in the city of New Haven that looks to deal with issues of injustice and equity throughout the city through a combination of different programs and green space. We have our network of community gardens. Right now there are 44, most of which are active. That network of community gardens serves over 500 families throughout the city who volunteer their time and their expertise to help each other and grow as a community and learn together. The gardens have a few different models. Some are communal, where they all work together as a work group and they focus on the community side, and you know, they all get to share in the bounty. Everyone who lives in these spaces can't grow in their backyard. Maybe they're renting. Maybe they don't have the financial resources to build the infrastructure to grow. Giving them a space where they have clean soil that they know doesn't have lead in it, and they have a raised bed that they know is built well, and a community around them to kind of lean on if they need, it gives them that access to be able to grow their own food. It also gives them the community around that bed. The community garden is way bigger than that 4x8 box, because it's the person who shows up every Thursday at 4 o'clock just like you, that you get to know their grandkids or you get to know their grandmothers. It helps to build community at a time when people are stuck inside. It gives that green space for them to get to. There's a lot of people who go to community gardens who don't even, they volunteer, they're active, and they don't even actually take vegetables from those community gardens. They're strictly for the community. When they're run well and they're really start moving, the community gardens become hubs of information for the community. Things going on are spread at those sites on the work days. Opportunities within the community are kind of voiced in those spaces. Book clubs are started. It becomes not just a growing space, it becomes an educational space. It becomes a space of health and a safe space in the community where you can go and break away from maybe the day-to-day trials and tribulations that come with growing up in an urban environment or living in an urban environment. It's kind of a piece of nature right around the corner.
Statistically, the #1 causes of death in our community are all diet-related diseases. We're talking heart disease, diabetes, high cholesterol, things of that nature. The CSAs, particularly the ones that are happening in New Haven, the ones that I'm a part of, and others that are offering as well, are important in a city like New Haven because it's so hard to get locally sourced, organic, or organic standard food.
I have noticed that there is a difference between when you grow your own food versus the food that you get in the grocery stores. When you grow it yourself, it's fresh, it tastes cleaner, it tastes healthier. It's like a mind thing too, knowing that you've grown this yourself. It's a satisfying thing. The cucumbers, I feel you can always like kind of taste that difference because it just tastes so clean. No GMO, no pesticides, anything like that growing in our stuff. And I think you can taste that. We know that they're putting GMO in our food. We know that they come from these big farms that put pesticides in the food. We know that it's not good for us. We know it's expensive as hell.
When we're talking about dealing with health issues, you want the most nutritionally dense food you can get. You also want culturally relevant food. Culturally relevant is a term that we use to describe foods that are relevant to people's cultures. Traditionally, African Americans love collard greens, they love okra, they love green beans, they love cabbage, they love black-eyed peas, they love peppers, they love certain types of hot peppers, certain varieties.
In general, I knew I wanted to get into gardening because I had a passion, but even greater than that, I knew it was important for me specifically to know how to grow and maintain food for this community, because I understand we don't always know where our next healthy meal is going to come from. And I think that has affected my community in a tremendous way.
Right now we're in a situation, not just in New Haven, but in the country, where financially people are struggling to take care of themselves and to feed themselves healthy. You are what you eat. Food is what makes up the human body, and if you're choosing things that are healthy for you and will improve your life and your health, then what better way to start than getting vegetables and fruit into your system? We're a very sick society. People are not healthy. The health issues that we're seeing with people has to do with what they're eating. The health issues that I'm seeing in the obesity and the high blood pressure in young children, we have to counter that. The only way we're going to counter that is make food that's good for them accessible and teach them the best way to eat.
Hi, my name is Sally. I'm an intuitive plant worker and a mushroom grower. I grew up in Fairhaven and the Hill, and I also lived in West Haven and a couple of places nearby New Haven. I'm a local herbalist, a local forager, and a mushroom grower. First and foremost, I want to say that my family is from Puerto Rico, so we're Caribbean people, and herbalism has always been a part of our culture and our generational teachings on medicine and food. I began to create different herbal tea blends without really understanding what an herbalist really is in modern society. It was just something that kind of came intuitively. Generationally, we would use plants to heal fevers, colds. When we got sick, we would cut a purple onion, put it in our sock. We would drink oregano tea, chamomile tea, made lots of soups, ate mushrooms. I source a lot of my herbs from either the community gardens or local foraging. I like to travel all throughout Connecticut. We have borage, chickweed, mullein, goldenrod, which I just harvested recently. I have motherwort, mugwort, lemon verbena, elderberries, rosehip, ginger roots, red clover, plantain, yarrow. We should be able to heal our children. We shouldn't have to always go to the pharmacy and get all these drugs that are poisoning the kids, that's poisoning us. We gotta take our power back and get reconnected to Mother Nature. This has been in our bloodline forever. This ain't new to us. We just need to be able to reconnect and get that information and be able to utilize it and put it into practice. think it's important for us to take our power back.
My name is Brianna McLean, and I'm from New Haven, Connecticut. I grew up in the Westville neighborhood of New Haven. I am the owner of By Brie Marie, which is a catering business. I also do cooking demonstrations and plant-based meal prep. My grandparents both passed away, what I think is young, from diseases that are preventable and treatable through diet and exercise. She was always in the kitchen, but we shared a lot of meals as a family and did a lot of talking and a lot of catching up. Once she passed, I kind of only found peace in the kitchen. So I started doing a lot of cooking and filming what I was cooking and sharing it on various social media platforms. And then one thing led to another. People would ask me to cook for them. And then I started getting asked to do cooking demonstrations within the community, which I really took to. From there, I just kind of decided to start a small business and make it official and start doing it for real. My grandparents are both originally from North Carolina, so lots of great soul food and Southern recipes that she was just fantastic at making. Everything from fried fish to, your traditional macaroni and cheese, cabbage, collard greens, things like that I've been able to veganize and make a lot healthier. Because so many Black and brown people are disproportionately affected by diseases that are preventable through diet and exercise. I think that it's really important to show people that they can still eat the same food that they love, that they grew up on, the same comforting food, but to have it in a healthier manner, paired along with diet and exercise.
My name is Alexis, and we are at Raw Juice Escape, located in New Haven, Connecticut. We provide raw, fresh juices, smoothies, herbal teas, sea moss, acai bowls, bitters as well. What made me open Raw Juice Escape is my background is in nursing. I worked at the Yale Diabetes Center for 3 to 4 years, and I saw how Black and brown people struggled with nutrition. Around this area, there's not many healthy selections. I just wanted to help out in any shape or form that I could. There's a plethora of options and things that we have here. I have something called the Fatigue Fighter, which is apple, beets, carrot, ginger, lemon. We offer papaya, limes, key limes, kale, spinach, parsley, basil, arugula, oranges, grapefruit, honeydew melon, seeded watermelon. Beets can help with blood pressure and cholesterol levels. Ginger can help with inflammation, gut health. Quality is most important because that's when you're going to get your nutrients, right? So having quality can also limit the timeline on what you can actually take. For example, fresh juices, you have 72 hours to drink the juice. If not, it starts to develop natural bacteria if you don't have any preservatives or things like that in it. So being fresh is ideally the best because you're able to get the nutrients And actually, when you drink fresh pressed juice, the nutrition goes straight to the bloodstream. And the nutrition is dispensed throughout the body, and through the blood, and hair, skin, nails, wherever you need it. Juicing is definitely good for the mental health and also for the gut. The gut is like the second brain. So if that is off, a lot of things like brain fog, inflammation, your digestion isn't working properly. So it's a lot of benefits in drinking fresh pressed juice or just smoothies or just eating an apple or a carrot. With a juice, you can get multiple fruits and vegetables in, which you probably wouldn't get that in one sitting. When you're hungry, your body is craving nutrients versus like a slice of pizza or something like that. So the best thing that you can actually do is give yourself a fresh juice, a smoothie, or herbal tea.
My name is Jamie Belton. I'm from New Haven. I'm a yoga teacher, a doula, I'm a friend, I'm a daughter, I'm a sister, I'm a neighbor. Services that I offer, they include yoga, Reiki, Thai massage, and recently I just got into sound bathing. All of these modalities have been a part of my own personal spiritual growth and development, finding my own connection to nature, connection to God. Also finding a connection to people, and not in a way that keeps us masked, but really going into the layers, the depths of us. Yoga's been a way for me to get into movement, really be in tune with my body, especially when it comes to breath. Being able to connect the mind, your thoughts, getting out of that space and really allowing yourself to get into your body. Noticing what parts of you start to become alive, especially when you're dealing with inner conflicts and seeing where that's stored in the body and being able to work through different movements to release those things that we hold on to. When it comes to Reiki, Reiki has been a pillar, a foundation that I have found so much support when it comes to keeping that balance energetically. Finding what energetic channels are blocked, what energetic channels are overflowing, and finding ways to bring balance to that, with the understanding that when coming in contact with others, we all have this energy filled, and depending on how we navigate, depending on what relationship we have with that, we truly are connected. When you step into another person's presence, you are meshing, you're connecting, even if you didn't necessarily intend for the type of connection that comes about. With Reiki, it truly is this ability to lay the hands on different parts of you, to check in with where you are, and also to energize those spaces that may seem underworked. Thai massage is all about moving the body as yoga is, getting into a space of relaxation and being able to just let go and just settle in. If you're sleeping and you're breathing, right now, if you're breathing while you're watching this, you're doing yoga. If you are thinking about someone and hoping that they have a good day, you're doing Reiki. If you're being there for someone and letting them know that you have their back and they have your support, you're being a doula. Fitness allows us to see ourselves. It allows us to truly face ourselves. It allows us to see where we're weak and where we can be strong. In our community, we have way too many illnesses and diseases. We have diseases. We have a lot of people who are undergoing things that we don't have to go through. It's not that we want to go through it. I don't believe everyone wants to go through what they're going through. They just don't know how. Every person I've met who's been in the farming community, who's been in the doula community, who's been in the acting community, they all do very similar things. Yoga helps to ground us. It helps to give us the ability to surrender. It helps us to get out of our own way. It helps us to connect. it helps us to put away the fears that try to come up and be like, hey, you can't do that. It stops us from being limited. Being able to share yoga in the agricultural space helped the people working in the field to do their work in a way that they weren't feeling like it was work. They felt like it was a service. They felt like, wow, I feel good in my body. I don't feel this soreness. It's like they were able to move in a way that didn't hurt. It didn't feel uncomfortable. It didn't feel like, oh, I can't do this, I'm limited. It helped us all to be able to move however we needed to move. I watched how other people who lived in the neighborhood, how they would walk by and they would see what's happening and they'd watch us all out in the fields just surrendering, being in this practice, sharing this practice together. I know it sparked a lot of wonder and a lot of curiosity, and it showed something that is revolutionary and that will be one day televised, of how people can come together and honor their bodies and honor source and honor the land and honor their abilities that were given to them to move, their abilities to create, everything that their body gives them, everything that their body leads them into. We're able to come together and devote ourselves to that, and then go out in the field and get our hands dirty. That has been an amazing experience. It is essential for our Black and Brown community to incorporate some type of movement, but especially yoga when it deals with your mind, your body, and your spirit.
We have a lot of people, not only in Day Street, but in New Haven, who have moved from the South and have come here. They always talk about how their grandmothers and their parents used to farm or garden. I think this is like a keepsake for them coming out here and being in remembrance of a lineage of people who do for themselves and take care of themselves. We want to get back to that.
I grew up in a family that grew their own food. Both sides, my father and my mother's side, were migrants from the South. One from North Carolina, one from Georgia. Growing up, you were in diapers at the same time as you were in the soil and seeing people grow their own food. In New Hallville, my grandfather had a garden that spanned pretty much the whole backyard. All the kids hung out there all the time, pretty much every day. We had experience with going outside to harvest some stuff for my grandmother and bringing it inside for dinner. We got to see that food came from where you lived as much as it came from stores or small markets and things like that. So it was a bit of a different experience with food and where it comes from. A lot more people grew. You still had a lot more elders in the neighborhoods, people who were just first generation from being migrants from the South or migrants from the South themselves. There was a lot more things growing. There were a lot more apple trees and pear trees and grapevines scattered throughout the neighborhood. So you saw fruit growing, not just being purchased in a plastic bag. When I was a kid, pretty much every 1 to 2 houses, every other house had a garden or grew something. If it wasn't a garden, it was a fruit tree. You saw huge apple trees in the neighborhood. My elementary school, which is not there anymore, it had a huge pear tree. We'd run around in the fall picking up pears and chasing each other with them. There were grapevines you would find around. And then that kind of slowed. You started seeing less mulberry trees in the neighborhoods because we weren't informed enough to really recognize that as real food resources. So a lot of it would just fall on the ground and kind of create a mess, and we didn't realize that it wasn't just like a mess on the ground, it was actually like nutrients and food, and we were supposed to eat it. or at least more than we did. Going into the 90s, you started seeing less gardens. I think our grandparents started kind of aging out a bit, at least for my generation, you know, those 80 babies. And you saw a transition of really not so much gardens around. You know, I had friends' parents who gardened. I didn't have many friends who gardened in middle school and kind of coming into high school. It wasn't even like it was happening at their house. It was happening at like their grandparents' house. It hadn't translated down to our parents' generation.
That my grandmother, which is somebody that I love so dearly and I love her energy, was born and raised on a 40-acre farm that her father had purchased and lived there with 13 of her siblings. They pretty much live self-sustainable. They grow all their own food. My great-grandmother was very well versed in medicine. She can sew anything off of the eye. She was an amazing cook, of course. My great-grandfather was very well versed in agriculture, and he was very well versed in carpentry. He knew how to draw up his own blueprints. He built for a lot of people in the town. They had a new child, they would build a new room in the house, and they would also plant a new tree. They had their own cemetery on the land, they still do. Learning about all that inspired me. I realized that if the world shifted drastically, zombie apocalypse energy or something else, that they would be my grandmother out of all of her children and grandchildren, and all her grandchildren have degrees from college. She would be the most capable of surviving in a time like that. I felt like that's something that I needed to get back because it's already been done generations before me, and that's a skill that it's in me and that I needed to revisit and to re-energize.
So the history of farming in my family, I was told that my great-great-granddaddy Red, back in South Carolina, he had a small farm and he would grow the biggest watermelons ever. Everyone being on Granddaddy Red's land, you get in trouble when you up here, they're gonna ship your butt down south, and you had to work in them fields from sunrise to sunset. My uncles who got to experience that commute from New Haven to South Carolina, being on that farm, that experience benefited them in a lot of ways so they could connect with nature.
My great-grandmother grew things in her backyard, whether it was like, you know, strawberries, greens, things like that, and had ties to working in the fields, I know for sure. And some of her ancestors did for sure. I don't know how far it goes back or specifically like what crops they were dealing with and things like that, but all my grandfathers, like brothers and sisters, had like small gardens in their backyards in the South. My grandmother had a very green thumb even here in Connecticut. Not too much gardening on her part. She didn't really grow too much food, but she had tons of plants. She had a greenhouse off the back porch. She grew roses and things like that. And she was really good at it.
I'm born and raised New Haven. My dad was from North Carolina. He grew up on a farm. My mom grew up in Milford, Connecticut. She also grew up on a farm. Dad was the oldest of 10 children. My grandmother had a working farm where she helped to feed her 10 children. And as far as I know, my dad worked the farm for a while before he came up north. When we would go down to visit my grandmother, we would see the chickens and the pigs and the donkeys all on the farm. My grandmother, she was married, but she pretty much ran that farm by herself with her kids. So my grandmother was probably the original farmer of the family. And when my dad came up north, he went to upstate New York first. Too cold up there coming from North Carolina. He came and settled in New Haven. He met my mom. They were married for 57 years before he passed in 2013. But one of the things that my dad had always wanted to do once I bought a house in Beaver Hills 21 years ago, he had always wanted to do some type of backyard garden. And for a very long time he tried, but the squirrels in New Haven are something special, so they would not let him be great with that farm. So every time he would plant something, the squirrels would take it.
My family is originally from Barbados, and growing up, my aunts in particular always had these really beautiful gardens in their backyards. So from as early as I can remember, I was always around some kind of plants. and I recognized that it had some connection to my family's identity, our story, our culture, and there was always something in me that made me want to try that for myself. I knew from an early age the importance of food, the importance of sustainable farming, and I think throughout high school I was always looking for that outlet, and then I found it. My family, when we were in Barbados, we were working on sugarcane plantations, and then after the enslaved Asians were freed, my family specifically had a farm. I think it was in Bridgetown, Barbados, but we still have that land to this day, and I still have yet to see it with my own eyes. That's a long-term goal of mine, to see my ancestors' farmland.
I have gardening in my blood. I have family members who've gardened in Florida years ago. I had a picture of my grandfather. I mean, he must have been about 7 feet tall. He was holding like 2 big bushels of collard greens. I mean, these things were huge. I saw that picture and it just made me realize where my passion for growing vegetables came from.
When I was a young girl, probably in middle school, I remember going to South Carolina and seeing a pig on the farm and seeing chickens, hearing the little rooster, and I remember just all this land, and I'm like, what is this? And this little house in Camden, South Carolina, way out from Florence. I would just watch my father take us to different areas where he grew up, where he was running. My father, as a young kid, he would drive the bus at 14, drive the kids to school, drive back to the place to take the bus back, walk home, get ready, and then walk to school. My dad was a worker. Specifically, tobacco was the thing that they farmed. My dad taught me a lot when it comes to just going out in nature and just seeking food, and that's only grown more in me to have land, to be able to live life sustainably, and to be able to connect more with the community, to share the things that are not always as easily accessible.
Urban agriculture in New Haven in the future looks very bright to me. I see more and more young people stepping into taking agriculture seriously, particularly urban agriculture, and utilizing the opportunities that are available in the moment, particularly for Black and brown people, to step up and create their own businesses, become entrepreneurs, and feed their families in that way while serving their community. I see schools getting more involved with local growers and having more healthy food in the schools, as well as supporting the local farmers in that way. I see other organizations that are nonprofits getting involved in supporting local farmers, sourcing their produce from local farmers to go into their food relief efforts. I see the city of New Haven getting on board and supporting local farmers and securing land to grow these different things, and securing the resources as well to grow these different things, whether that be water, whether that be electricity, again, whether that be land, or whether that be seeds, trees, things like that. I see way more community gardens thriving and it being used as a remedy to a lot of the mental and physical health issues that we have in our community. I see the educational piece of people understanding more about nutrition and how to better take care of themselves happening as well. I see these spaces that are created being used as community spaces where people can come together and network and build stronger communities.
As far as the future goes for agriculture in New Haven for Black and brown people, I hope to see people get into it. I hope to see them outside learning. I hope to see the kids outside learning how to grow. I hope to expand our Mother's Gardens, to get more raised beds, to do more workshops, to get in the school systems in New Haven and bring these kids outside to show them they can grow their own food.
The future of New Haven's agriculture, health and wellness scene is promising. I think that 5 to 10 years from now, we're going to see our local gardens bloom and blossom into something huge, which is going to be great for the communities that they're in. There's going to be a lot more people coming into the space wanting to do various things, whether it's food, whether it's exercise, like seeing more gyms and workout classes and things like that, and ways to move your body. I see a lot more healthy restaurants. There aren't many around here right now. I see the space for vegan restaurants that are fast casual and also fine dining as well. I would love to see a space where there's lots of community, where you could come and buy produce from local farmers and things like that, and where you could also get a hot bite to eat. I see lots more youth programming. I see the youth getting a lot more involved with our gardens, with different workout activities and things like that. I see lots of programming for our elderly population as well. I see a lot more, not necessarily youth, like high school age and down, but I see a lot more like middle-aged, younger people getting involved with like community and gardening and things like that, as it's becoming more popular on the internet, more popular in general. I just hopefully see more people in their 20s and 30s coming out and joining in on things like that as well.
I would love to see our third places, so I'm thinking churches, I'm thinking community centers, but I'm also thinking jobs in schools. I would love to see where our institutions of gathering can be transformed into locations for nourishment and sustaining each other. So what does it look like to have schools from around this entire neighborhood all working together in garden spaces? Maybe they have community gardens that students can come visit to, and students outside of school can visit and grow and learn how to grow specific herbs, specific crops that might be culturally significant to one demographic of student or another demographic of student. I think bringing garden spaces, bringing just sustainable gardening in general into curriculum is invaluable. Not only in understanding the application of, where does math come up in gardening? Where does the history of certain crops come up in gardening? Even working on your vocabulary, how do you say certain ways of, harvest in Spanish, in French, in Chinese? I think that there are many, many different outlets for that, and a future that I would like to see is numerous gardens that are intentionally cared for in an interdisciplinary way and are based in this idea of community, based in this idea of nourishing our neighbors, and really based in a core understanding of justice, that safe, accessible food is a human right, and that is a tenement that we want to uphold in our schools, in our places of work, in our places of worship. So that would be my biggest hope, is just seeing more gardens and seeing more institutions that center gardens in the work that they do.
I would like to see, of course, more food being grown in more neighborhoods that are underserved. I would like to see more of our immigrants, more of our people from other countries get involved and really growing and understanding what it means to grow their own food. And a lot of them, I talked to the Afghans, they said their parents have had huge gardens in their country. They always grew their food. Here, because they're just trying to manage the whole network of being in a country that's foreign to them, learning the ways to get around, it's hard. It's a very hard task. I would just like to see more people eating, pushing stores out of their community that don't serve their best interests. Removing all the excess liquor stores in our neighborhoods so that people can heal, because that's a whole healing process. and increasing the access to fresh vegetables and make it less expensive for people, because that's one of the roadblocks to fresh fruits and vegetables.
I think the future of agriculture in New Haven, it's going to have a couple kind of ways it's going to come about and build up. First off, I think like home gardens are going to continue to rise. I think you're going to see less lawns, more food growing. I think that trend that we're seeing around the country is going to translate or continue to translate in New Haven. There's going to be more fruit trees being put in, especially as those kind of dwarf options come out. I see the urban gardens, the community garden network over the next 10 years probably doubling in capacity. Gather New Haven for a very long time has led the charge with creating these spaces. Now the importance of these spaces is really getting its due, right? And these community gardeners who've been doing it for a time are really getting their due. I think the need for more community gardens is going to kind of force a bigger supply. And with that, it's not just going to be gathered kind of out there with the community gardens. You're going to start seeing all types of organizations and companies and businesses and public housing kind of setting up community gardens within their spaces to support their community as a whole. I think you're going to see a lot more small urban farms, half an acre here, as people can get their hands on those spaces. You're going to see a lot more local small business community farms popping up. That access is going to help to keep driving the good prices and driving the demand. Home gardens, community gardens, and urban guerrilla farms are going to be a big part of the food supply in New Haven.
My message to the world is just don't count us out. Just because we in the hood, there's beauty in the hood. We're resilient, we're tenacious, and we keep the ball going. My best trends come from the hood, so don't count us out.
Health is wealth. Nothing is more important in this life, so take it serious, invest in yourself, invest in your health and wellness, and you'll never regret it. I really love this one sentence, and it's 2 words, very short: die empty.
Message to the world: support Black growers. Never think that you can't do it because you are a certain age, a certain gender, you live in a certain area. It all starts with you. If you believe that you can do that, you will find other people who feel the same way, and they will want to grow with you. And you coming together and starting that, whether it's a big space like ours, a container garden, a pocket garden, anywhere that people see people who look like them growing, it just gives them the confidence that they can do this too. And at the end of the day, we need growers because we need to eat. We need food. We are the ones that help feed literally the world. We start with our community, we start with our neighborhood, our spaces where we grow. We help to feed our community, our city, our state, our country, and then our world, because there's growers all over the world. Support your growers of color. Support your Black growers. Support your urban ag growers. That I cannot stress enough, because if you look at climate change and you look at the world as it is now, farmland that was around maybe even 10, 15 years ago is not there anymore, or it's floods so much now that they can't grow, or there's a very short growing window. So we're going to need more urban ag growers to be able to grow in a space in a park, or take a corner of a field and grow somewhere, or take a bunch of containers and set them up in a way that it looks like a little food forest. We're going to need that, because the big acreage that we're used to in farming, I don't think it's going to be here in 10 to 15 years. It's going to be underwater, or it's going to be so dry that the soil is not going to support the food that you're trying to grow there. So we're literally going to need to take spaces in a city, such as New Haven, any place that's a little green, or that we have the opportunity that gets sunlight and enough water. we're going to need those spaces to grow. We have to support our small farmers in whatever shape they come in, but support your local growers, not just farmers, your local growers, and especially support growers of color and Black folks, because we started this and we're going to finish it.
I am in a constant state of practice, and you are in a constant state of practice. And what I would add to that quote is, with that understanding, let's be patient and let's be gracious to each other.
As long as we refuse to acknowledge that what is happening to the Palestinians in the West Bank and Gaza, to the Lebanese, as something that affects us, then we're not going to make change. Whatever happens to these people will reverberate around the world. It'll start there, it'll be in our country, it'll be in our community, it'll be in our homes. If we don't have the heart enough to feel the compassion, empathy, to stand up against the system that is destroying a whole race of people, then how are we going to improve our own self-worth? How are we going to improve our own community? Fight the system, whatever way it is. That means call your representatives, call them. Unfortunately, they're not really listening right now. Or even donate toward any cause that you think will help to make life easier for our humanity.
One of the biggest things to remember in doing this work of nature, of land preservation, of urban agriculture, or agriculture as a whole, is that we can't do any of it by ourselves. The key thing that's going to allow us to change these spaces in our communities and bring back these spaces and our reverence of these spaces and remembrance that we are all descendants of stewards of the plant and stewards of the earth, is that we got to do it together. Nothing was done solely alone. The system that was set up to have us dependent on not having access to nature, whether it be in our food or our access through land, which has a major effects on our mental states and our health quality within our urban communities, that wasn't done to us alone. So the solution is going to be working together with our community partners, working together with our friends of groups to really make the change and take back our spaces within our communities.
My message to the world would be, you are what you eat. You eat the animal, you get crazy like the animal. You die by the animal. It's like, it's a lot. You are what you eat. I feel like you are what you eat and you are what you drink.
My message to the world is to focus on self-care, healthy forms of self-care. So healthy forms of self-care do not impede upon or step on the toes of other people in a negative way. Sometimes you got to set your boundaries, and sometimes you got to do what you got to do. But healthy forms of self-care are taking care of yourself first so that you can show up for the community as a whole and be a member of your community. So I encourage people to think about forms of self-care, whether that be massages, breath work, whether that be taking up an instrument, whether that be just sitting down and figuring out life, whether that be getting away from the sirens that drive you crazy, whether that be sitting in the sun and sunbathing, whether that be going on trips and meeting new people and learning about different cultures, or just relaxing in more natural spaces, whether that be taking a moment and cooking for yourself, something that you really like, whether that be taking a moment and spending time with your kids or with your elders in your family, just spending more time with your family, whether that be setting boundaries and sticking to them, whether that be exercising and committing to that and feeling good about that. Whatever it is, focus on those healthy forms of self-care and everything else will follow. Peach Farmer D.
Was strong, but she needed food. You saw her bathing on the roof, her beauty and the moonlight overthrew you. She tied you to a kitchen chair, cut your cord and she cut your hair.